The city of Denver, the state of Colorado, you guys have been fucking amazing for the last 10 years.
Welcome to
Mile High Hockey Lab.
Mile High Hockey Lab.
Hello and welcome to the Mile High Hockey Lab. I am your host, Adrian Hernandez. I am here with Evan Liu and Ezra Parter to talk Colorado Avalanche hockey ahead of opening night at Ball Arena. And I am excited, boys. I don't know about you two. We even have Jacob joining us. Look at that. We got a
Hey,
what's up, guys? Well, yeah, so we are here to talk Colorado Avalanche, like I said, ahead of the game tonight against the Chicago Blackhawks and Connor Bedard. Thank you all for joining us. This is, the best part of the year, I'd say, for people like us who cover sports, because there's so much left to be proven. There's so much left to find out about. So our best talent is to just, make assumptions and conjecture based on what hasn't happened yet. So that's what we do as professionals here at the Mile High Hockey Lab. But thank you, the three of you, for joining me today. How are you?
doing good. Doing
Awesome.
well, man.
Yeah. Everybody's excited and ready to go, huh? So let's just get right into it. I want to talk a little bit about the Avalanche games that have happened already. As many of you know, the Avalanche are 3-0. They've gotten wins in a variety of different ways, and I do want to touch a little bit on that. But I'll start with our managing editor, Mr. Evan Liu, and we'll start with that game against LA, the opening night. It felt like that was, so far, the Avalanche's most sure-handed win. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I would agree with that statement. I mean, you have when Mikko Rantanen is putting up 4 points to start the regular season, I think that's a pretty good sign that you're supposed to win a game, right? And he was just part of the show, right? I mean, most of the stars came out and played that game. You had McKinnon grabbing a couple of points, Makar grabbing a couple of points, and that's what you need, right? That's how you want to start the season off hot. So good for them getting that started off on the right foot, and I think that only fueled them for the last two games of that road trip, which were obviously a little bit different and closer than maybe some people had expected or hoped.
Yeah, and we talked about a little bit last week how we kind of felt like that game against San Jose had a trap game feeling to it based on starting on the road, being in LA. I don't think any of us had Mackenzie Blackwood goaling the Avs. But nonetheless, Makar was able to tie it late. Mikko makes a smooth move into the shootout. And Georgiev had a great night and saves every shot in the shootout to steal 2 points. Ezra, I'll send this one your way. Is that 2 stolen points? And tell me what your takeaway was from that Sharks game.
I wouldn't really call it 2 stolen points because they outplayed the Sharks the whole night. It was just a just reward, for what happened in that game. I mean, Mackenzie Blackwood was great, but also like pucks were trickling through him and staying on the goal line or hitting posts or just kind of like fluttering away from the net when they should be going in. It was a crazy luck night. And I feel like it kind of balanced out the LA Kings game where all the luck went Colorado's way and they didn't play that well, but they won 5-2. So between the two games, they had a pretty even split of luck and they got 2 wins. That's what should have happened.
Okay, so would you agree then that the LA was the most sure-handed win based on that, or do you still think San Jose was? It just didn't shake out that way on the score sheet.
That's how I feel about it. The LA win was the LA game. They dominated the third period, and they said, "Never mind all the other stuff that's been going on today. We're gonna come out here and show that we're the better team."
Yeah.
But for the first 2 periods, it was shaky, and every lucky bounce was bouncing their way. I was at the game, and like. It was a great time, but honestly, just watching it, I was like, how is this still? How did that puck not go in for LA? How did that one go in for Colorado? This is crazy.
Yeah.
And it wasn't just goals; it was bounces all over the ice. It was a wild game, but it worked in the Avs' favor. And then the San Jose game, the bounces didn't go their way, but they still won because they're just a much better team than San Jose. Let's be honest.
Yeah, well, that's how I felt too, and that's why I was like, something's got to give, and obviously it did with Makar scoring late. Speaking of something's got to give, when the Avs played the Kraken in their most recent matchup, it felt like we were watching Game 8 of the first round of this last year's playoffs. For I don't know, I'd say about a period it felt that way. But then it kind of started to hit me, and Jacob, I'll send this one to you. It hit me that it felt kind of like the tables had turned. Like in the playoffs, Avalanche were controlling play. They had possession. They just could not get the puck on net through the, the stingy blocking of the Kraken. And then, a couple nights ago, that's kind of how it felt later on in the Avalanche game, that the Avs were kind of just frustrating the Kraken, and then they were very, very opportunistic. What are your thoughts on that? And then also touch a little bit on your thoughts of the Eberle and LOC fight.
Yeah, so the Kraken game, I mean, I think we all had the same thoughts after the first period that were like, holy crap, like, are the Kraken just, a bad matchup for the Avs? That's kind of where my head was at after that first period, was thinking like, maybe the talent disparity doesn't really matter here, because stylistically the Kraken might have the Avs figured out. And then the last two periods, like, that thought just completely left my mind. The Avs overwhelmed them with their talent. And I think that Kraken game really just highlighted the upgrades the Avs have made to the middle and the bottom six from last year. That against the Kraken last year, the middle and the bottom six at best were playing them to a tie, but for the most part, we're playing in their own end and dumping it out and then trying to get a change. And that was your best case scenario for the second through fourth lines. But in the second and third periods, especially, those lines were driving play, and they were putting the Kraken on their heels. And the Kraken look a lot different when they're playing on their heels as opposed to playing downhill. And I think that as that game went on, you just kind of saw that talent does kind of win out in the end. That's that over the long haul, that's what should happen. And so I think that the Avs kind of came out with a mission after that first period to say, hey, this isn't the playoffs last year, and just they played with a little more emotional fire. It felt like, and to your point about the LOC Eberle fight. The fact that it was LOC who stuck up for Cogliano, I think that kind of hit me right in the feels.
Mm-hmm.
That that's his boy, right? Like, you kind of see LOC is trying to mold a career similar to Cogliano's.
Exactly.
So I like it was. It's this is how hockey is. It was heartwarming, watching him punch Eberle in the face multiple times. Right? That's kind of where I was at.
Yeah. The paradox of being a sports fan right there is being glad to when you see a guy wearing knuckles to the face.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, you touched a little bit on the stylistic kryptonite sort of, I guess, talking point that I think I've even thought of in that game. I posted on Twitter, man, this kind of feels just like the styles don't mesh. The Seattle Kraken just wait for the Avs, watch them lose the puck, and then because the Avs are so fast and so aggressive in getting up into the offensive play, especially defensively, they just seem to get the puck and break out in transition and make the most of their opportunities. And it felt like that, like you said, in the first period. Evan, do you think that that's an issue? And because like it's going to be a talent advantage over the Seattle Kraken, but if a really good team kind of employs the same tactic, are the Avalanche in trouble stylistically?
I think it's I look at this question kind of with a caveat, just because last season in particular in the playoffs, the Avs were just ruined with injuries, right? And this team this year is a lot different than the one last year that the Kraken faced in the playoffs. Sure. The run of momentum is kind of the same. Grubauer was not kind of his same self last game as he was in the playoffs last year. So I think there's a few different like caveats to kind of work with.
For sure.
But when you look at like I think the record last season, I know Seattle came into Denver and beat the Avs on their home ice, I think both times, or at least one of the times. I remember that they beat them at least once, maybe twice. Someone had to fact check me on that.
I think it was twice overall, but I think the Avs won one in the first two, and then they might have lost 5.
Something like that. Yeah. I don't know. But regardless, the Kraken do have that style of play, and they don't have that like kind of star player, right? Like they don't have like a Nathan McKinnon on their team, right, for example. And they kind of have that teamy culture mentality, if that makes any sense at all. Of just like, we're in this together for each other. We don't need to rely on a Nathan McKinnon or a Cale Makar to go far. And if they keep hustling up the neutral zone like they have been and chasing pucks down, they're going to do really well once again. But they just have to find that scoring touch, which they didn't have on Tuesday night against the Avs. But it'll be interesting to see kind of how it all plays out the rest of the season, because the Avs finished the season series against the Kraken in November. They don't play him. They don't play him after November
for a while. Yeah.
So if the Avs meet the Kraken again in the playoffs next year, it could be completely different than what we've seen here early on in the season.
Yeah, and it's funny that you mentioned the Kraken are having a tough time scoring, because last postseason they scored every first goal of the postseason matchups, all 7 games. So I guess it probably was 2 and 7 that they lost at home, because 7 had to be one of them, right? Which is unfortunate. But nonetheless, I agree with you. I think both teams are a lot different now. And I also think that, like, the Kraken in particular, I don't imagine those scoring woes are going to stick. If you remember their team last year, they were one of those teams with like 4 or 5 20 goal scorer type. And that's probably what they'll get back to inevitably. I think the law of averages will balance out and the Kraken will be a better team than they appear so far. Ezra, that's kind of your other squad, and I see you making faces as I make my points. Yeah. Are you in total disagreement with me?
I wouldn't say total disagreement. I just last year they were on a shooting percentage bender. Their shooting percentage was so high, and it's completely unsustainable. Now their shooting percentage this season is so low, it's unsustainable too. So it's not going to normalize at a bunch of 20 goal scorers, especially with like Daniel Sprong off the roster. That's one guy who is a bottom 6 player who's going to score 20 goals most likely every season. So, I think they can come back to, McCann, Beniers, maybe Bjorkstrand, maybe Wenberg, Burakovsky, if he can stay healthy. Those guys could all contend for 20 goals, but I don't think we're going to see another 40-goal season out of McCann ever. And who knows how many of them can actually all hit again. But I do think definitely your overall point that the scoring is going to normalize between last season and this season is right. It's just, I don't think they're going to get back to having multiple or that vast number of 20 goal scorers.
Yeah, well, you're basically laying out the dichotomy between when they've been really bad and really good is such a wide gap that it's hard to predict where they'll land in between those. They're basically anomalies. So we'll see how that works out. And just getting back to the stylistic stuff, I felt kind of like it hit me again that I was like, this feels like Dallas in the bubble. Do you think that that's kind of what we are still seeing teams go for against the Avs? Go ahead, Ezra. You seem like you're ready for this one.
Oh, sure. I think that the Avs are so good in transition and so good also on the cycle that teams have to prevent them from either setting up or getting transition breaks. And the way that Seattle does that is by forcing their forecheck down the defense's throat. Really, they just are coming through all the time, high pressure, not letting any outlet passes get out clean, really. And that's what Dallas did it slightly differently. Dallas mucked up the neutral zone and didn't let those outlet passes come through. So that is the intention of any team trying to slow down Colorado. The problem is you make one mistake doing, especially Dallas's way, where you're mucking up the middle. If you make one mistake on that, then all of a sudden you've got a hole in your defenses and Colorado's through it and you're scrambling to defend. Seattle's way is more effective than Dallas's because they have their backup with their forecheck coming down at you. They still have people back, and one hole in the forecheck isn't going to ruin what's already back there, preventing things from getting through the neutral zone. And their defense is, as much as they don't have like a Kale or even a Taves, they don't have somebody who's truly elite. They have so many guys who are really good with their sticks and really good at preventing entries. So, they're good at that. I think the Seattle's way is something that team can do and not a lot of other teams can do because they just have the right guy. They have so many capable players on the ice at all times. They don't have any high end. They don't have any low end. They just have a lot of guys who could do really effective defense work through the neutral zone.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Well, Jacob, tell me, what do you think of that? Do you agree with Ezra on those points between Dallas and Seattle and kind of the effectiveness of the two styles?
Yeah, I think it's dead on. I think the point about Dallas's style potentially having a guy out of position, with their aggressiveness is a really good point about the differences between the two. And I think you guys are right that there is kind of a model for how teams try to play against the Avalanche. Just slow slow them down in the neutral zone, muck the game up, just try to take away as much of their speed as possible. But the problem with that is, like I said earlier, skill wins out in the end. And so if you're not playing, pretty much perfect with that style of play, eventually the Avs are gonna find a hole. And I think that the one thing that makes the Avs, this version so interesting is, Georgie and net kind of changes the calculus against the Avs. Is that you have to be even more certain in your coverage gaps, because you don't know how many goals you're going to give up.
Right.
Before they got a true number one. I mean, Kemper was really good. I think that he got a bad rap in the playoffs, but he wasn't on the level of Georgie. And so in the past, you could kind of say, well, if we get into a shootout with the Avs, maybe we can ride some shooting percentage luck to the win. That's a little more difficult to try to settle with now. And so I do think that this year you're going to see teams try some different styles against the Avs, just because I don't think that it's going to be the same night in and night out, especially with, Georgie might have his best season yet. That's kind of my baseline expectation for him.
Yeah, you touch on Georgie and how he impacts the outlook and the, I guess, strategy when you're facing the Avalanche. But I also think, add to that, the third and fourth line have some, at least for the time being, have seemed to found some solidarity. Evan, let's talk a little bit about the new guys that have come in, like Miles Wood, like Ross Colton, Tomas Tatar. Specifically, that third line has really, I mean, I don't know how they look numbers wise, deep stats, stuff like that. But I mean, just to the eye test, it seems like they get it in terms of how Colorado Avalanche hockey is played and what Bednar expects from that kind of role in the third line. What are your thoughts of the new guys so far, Ev?
I think you're right about that third line in particular. They know what to do. They know what their role is. They know what Jared Bednar is going to want to get out of them on a nightly basis. Now, with that being said, I don't think they've put up a ton of points. I know Ross Colton got the assist to Miles Wood on the empty netter in LA. But outside of that, I don't really know if they've gotten much else point wise, at least. I know I mentioned early on in the season that I've been wanting to watch Tomas Tatar and seeing if he can put up some good points to start the year. He hasn't done so yet. But then again, we are only 3 games into this young season. They still need time to build chemistry, to adjust. They're about to play their first home game at Ball Arena, which should be rocking tonight. That's going to be different than, hearing rains of boos from Seattle fans to Cale Makar for something he was already punished for. But that's a rabbit hole we don't need to go into right now. But no, I think for what it's worth, for what they've done so far, it has been good. I do agree, though, that I think the point totals will hopefully, start to climb as the season starts to go on and they get more games under their belt and they start playing more together. So yeah, it's just a matter of time, I think, before they really start rolling with what they already have.
Yeah, and I agree with you. And I also want to add, like you mentioned, it's early. I think like that style and the communication between the third line forward group is paramount. And if you even look at the PK so far, it's been really, really good, featuring a lot of those third and fourth liners. And as that communication starts to become more sure between these players, it should make that third and fourth line get even more pesky and even harder to deal with, which that's kind of the game plan, because when you get those third and fourth lines that play that way, you can then jump McKinnon and Rantanen and that top group on the ice with Makar and Taves and really take advantage of the tired legs if you can get them in transition. So that's kind of like a crucial component to the Avalanche success, even the top line success. It's how hockey works, I'd say. But Ezra, speaking of the top line, we noticed some changes between games 1 and 2 and the game against the Kraken. Namely, we saw Nichushkin on the top line with McKinnon and Rantanen rather than Drouin. What did you think of that? We also saw Lehkonen up there from time to time and Drouin as well. It seems like Bednar's experimenting. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think that's right. Bednar's experimenting a bit. I think there's got to be some disappointment in Drouin's start. I mean, for McKinnon and Rantanen to have 4 and 5 points respectively, and Drouin to only have 1. It's only 3 games. It's a little too early to jump to any conclusions, but he is clearly not clicking with them quite in the way that everyone was hoping for quite yet. he also has had his struggles defensively, and in the Kraken game, he played under 10 minutes at even strength. He definitely he's getting his power play minutes on the second unit, and that unit doesn't get that much time on ice, so he hasn't done much with it, that's totally fair. No criticism there. But he's not clicked at even strength, and I think Bednar was trying to change something up. I like the idea, like, I don't know if this is true at all, but in my head, when I saw Nichushkin out there to start, I was like, oh, he's like, see, this is what would have happened if Nichushkin was here last year, right? Guys, let's just do what Val does to prove to y'all that we would have beat you if he was here. Which, is kind of silly and probably not true at all, but it is definitely a thought I had. It's like, yeah, we got to see Val against the Kraken. He's got to start. But
what's funny about you saying that is he was on the top line and it seemed like, oh man, it's not working out. Yeah. And then they move Lehkonen up there for a second just to try it. Nichushkin comes on as the second line center or wing. I'm not sure where he was playing, but and immediately drives to the net, causes chaos, and creates a scoring opportunity that the Avs cash in on. So it's like, it's funny that you mentioned experimenting, and I'm going to take it to Jacob and ask him what he thinks of this approach. But the Avs, Bednar mentioned today on Altitude that it's his job to balance the lineup, that he knows Lehkonen and Nichushkin work in that top group, that they both bring a different style, but he wants to make sure that he brings talent and balance to the lineup. Two-part question, Jacob. One, do you like that approach? And two, do you have confidence that we'll settle on something and then kind of stay there, or is this always a revolving door of trying things?
I kind of think it's going to be a revolving door of trying things for now because, these are the only thing that matters at this point is winning championships.
Banners,
and so, right. And so the regular season, the Avs are good enough that they have the luxury to say, we're going to be in the playoffs. And whether, we're the 1 seed, 2 seed, 3 seed, that's kind of secondary. We know we're going to be in the playoffs. So the primary goal of the regular season is to get ready for the playoffs. And if the Avs have had one Achilles heel, throughout this era, it's that, there are, like we talked about earlier, there are kind of stylistic matchups that have frustrated them in the past. Mm-hmm. And, it's only 3 games, so it's hard to say for certain what's going on. But my sense of things is that this is Bednar trying to adjust to that, to say, okay, so if we get, X look or if we get Y look from these teams, do I have a counter to whatever they're trying to do to us? And so I really love this approach from Bednar, if that is what he's doing here, so that come playoff time you don't have to just kind of toss a bunch of people together and be like, hey, maybe this will work, let's hope that they find some chemistry on the fly. Build some chemistry in October and November when the games are a little less intense, and again, you can just kind of experiment a little bit. Like that San Jose game, to me, that looked like they were kind of assuming like, the outcome is not in doubt, we're going to win or at least get a point, so let's kind of use this game as a lab to try to figure out how we can kind of play these guys together.
Well, it's funny that you mentioned it as a lab, because I was just about to call it like a case study or like doing some data entry, but what's funny about that to me is I akin it to like the NFL coaches with their giant play sheets. Like we saw Sean Payton's picture of his play sheet. It's like you're just adding to that play sheet as a head coach. Okay, when this is happening, what do I know works and what can I go to? I love that. I love that you're keying on that, because I think that's big boy coaching. It's not, I love the idea of like, we're going to be who we are in the top 6, and you're going to know who's going to be there, and we're going to beat you every night. But I also like, the thought of being a professional and having options and exhausting your resources and finding out all of the facts so that you can be as good as you can at your job. And I think that that's an effective way of doing that if you're Jared Bednar, with this experimenting with the lineup. But Evan, we talked a little bit about Drouin and maybe hoping for more from him in terms of the new guys, but is there anyone else that you're kind of looking at and kind of saying, okay, when's it going to happen? Come along.
Yeah, I think I kind of fall under that realm with Ryan Johansson. He's done really well on like face-offs. I'll give him that. That is a nice thing to see change, seeing the Avs win face-offs. But outside of that, there's not been a ton from him, honestly. Yeah. And again, I'll refer back to it's still young in the season. He's adjusting to this new 2C position with, Artturi Lehkonen and Nichushkin alongside him, right? So come back to me in like 2 weeks, and if he's still struggling, then I'll have some more concerns. Because I mean, here we are again, right? If we're back here in 2 weeks and we're back in the cycle of, oh, is he actually the 2C? Do we need to go find someone else at 2C? It's just going to be exhausting once again.
Yeah, and that's funny. You mentioned the 2C thing, and I instantly thought of the Devon Toews contract, and I don't think we talked about that in between now and then, or then and now, I guess is the right way to put it. So Ezra, let's touch on that real quick.
Yeah.
In the event that 2C role is not satiated, and the Avs are locked in long-term 7x7 2-5 for Devon Toews, what are we looking at now in terms of trade capital to shore that position up, or are we just going to ride it out again?
Well, it's I love the contract. I love the signing. It's really exciting to me that Toews is sticking around. But that does mean that the Avalanche are kind of committing to a shorter contention window a little bit, because you've got Toews, McKinnon, Rantanen, all at the upper end of their 20s or about to be 30 in Toews' case, or currently 30. I think about to be 30. And those guys are all, going to be here for a long time, but they're eating up a lot of the cap, and we're committing to this late 20s kind of grouping of players, right? And that makes sense with Landeskog and Makar kind of being the younger side of it already at 25. So what that tells me is that there are two ways the Avs can go to trade a contract for a center. If moving somebody from the defense is the way to go, and that is Byram and Girard. Girard fits the age group that they already have. If they want to stick with that, and they're saying at the end of these guys, as these guys hit like 32, 33, we'll start selling off parts and rebuild at that point if we have to. Then it would make sense to trade Byram for somebody in their late 20s prime to play that 2C role, more than it would make sense to trade Girard. The play on the ice wise right now, it kind of also makes more sense to trade Byram than Girard, because Byram hasn't quite figured it all out yet. He obviously has far more potential than Girard, or maybe even Toews, but he hasn't figured it out yet, and they've shown with the Newhook deal that they don't have the patience for people to figure it out on the fly while they're trying to win another cup. So it's possible that Byram would be the guy on the way out. I don't think that's going to happen, to be clear. I think it's Johansson this year, and if it doesn't work, they'll bring in somebody else next year and let him walk. But if they were to try to trade somebody, it seems like that's probably where the value is.
Yeah. Well, I agree with you. I don't think now's the time to panic or anything. But the question has been the question for a few years now. So you might as well keep it in the back of your head and think about the potential that Johansson hasn't or doesn't come into his own in that role. Jacob, what are your thoughts on Raijo's play so far? And obviously, as Ezra talks about Byram's struggles perhaps to start, I know specifically had a tough time with Girard. Do you like that pair?
Yeah, I mean, I like that pair just generally because I don't like the bottom pairing. I mean, Manson and Jack Johnson are fine, but like if either of them were on the second pairing, I'd have a lot more issues with it. So yeah. I like it in as much as that there's not really another option for that second pairing, I think. Johansson, it's only 3 games, so it's way too early to press the panic button. And also, I think that we do need to give Johansson a break, and that, we talked earlier about how the Avs are kind of experimenting with who's going to be the third guy on that top line. That filters down to the second line. And so, Johansson's not going to be able to get, build chemistry with his line mates until the Avs kind of figure out the top line. And so I do think we kind of have to give Johansson a little bit of a break. Plus, he's such a big body. He plays so physical. He's so good on faceoffs that really, I think we're going to grade him in the postseason. If he's just league average in the regular season, that's fine. The Avs can get by with a league average second line center. I think that it's really going to come down to how he plays in the playoffs. So like, unless this is just a complete and total disaster, I can't really see them moving on from him in the middle of the season. But even if they did, that contract's not bad. They could find a team like Arizona or San Jose who's not contending to take on half that salary, and they could unload him You never know about Ross Colton. He might be the second line center if everything goes south. And so maybe you get rid of Johansson and bring in a third line center, and Colton steps up. Like we're in the age of hypotheticals with all of this. Yeah. But I think long story short, I don't anticipate any real big changes with the second line center unless some big name becomes available, and then I think that's when we'd start talking about maybe Byram or Gerard.
Yeah, well, I mean, I hate to be that guy, but I did see someone said they linked Kane to the Avalanche possibly. So that's off in La La Land, if you ask me. But
I mean, we have Drew. They've got Druin already. They've already got a guy who scores and doesn't play defense.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
we slot in.
Yeah, exactly. I don't understand. And honestly, to me, like, show me videos of you skating by yourself in an empty rink at full speed and you look great, but like inside of an NHL hockey game, I want to see it there, and then I'll believe you that you're truly back. But nonetheless, as we move on to a former Chicago Blackhawk, Ezra, you mentioned that the Avs are committing long term to a lot of guys, and we saw the Blackhawks do that. They did get their 3 cups in the meantime, but then there was that 3 to 4 year window where they were stuck in these long-term contracts with aged guys on the team. And now it kind of feels like they may be getting to the flip side of that era as they welcome young phenom Connor Bedard, first overall pick, to their roster. Is there, Evan, I'll send this one your way. Is there something in particular you're looking for in Bedard's debut against the Colorado Avalanche? And how do you think he's going to do against, one of the best centers in all of hockey and one of the best top lines in all of hockey?
Oh, I mean, you mentioned the top line. I'm more looking forward to how Cale Makar is going to do against him. I cannot wait to see what he can do. Or not just what he can do, what both of them can do against each other, right? I mean, those are 2 prodigal players in this league, both playing on different teams in different directions on different ends of the ice, right? Mm-hmm. So I'm really intrigued to see kind of how Jared Bednar has prepared Cale Makar and Devon Toews to kind of go at Bedard. Like, how are they going to stop him? Will Toews, keep doing his, just stick work, right? Or will he have to use his body more? Will Makar simply just, skate with him and just pressure him off the puck or something like that, So I'm really intrigued to watch that and see what he can do. In terms of like defensively for Bedard, I think he's going to have a rough time, but it's not going to be his fault. It's just going to be because he's against Nathan MacKinnon and Mikko Rantanen with a bunch of nobodies on his line and in defense with him. So it'll be interesting to see how it all kind of plays out on both ends for him. But it should be the first of many, many great showdowns between Bedard and Makar in particular.
Yeah, and it's awesome that you key on that matchup because that's probably true. If things go to plan, Bedard's going to be in Chicago and Makar will be in Colorado for a long time. And if Chicago gets back to competing on a high level, there could be some really meaningful games between those 2. And I like how you put it, prodigal players in the NHL. So we've worked ourselves into the Blackhawks and Avalanche home opener preview. I just want to take a quick moment and thank everybody who's listening for joining us. If you enjoy this content, please head on over to our website, milehighhockey.com. You can find articles. You can see opinion articles, previews, recaps. We have you covered if you are looking for Colorado Avalanche coverage. And also, if you are looking for yet another site, there's puckyeti.com that the 3, I'm not sure, Jacob, if you are contributing to that, but, it's all one big happy family in the Colorado Avalanche media world. So there's another site you can head to. But continuing with tonight's home opener and the Chicago Blackhawks at Ball Arena against the Colorado Avalanche at 8:30 p.m. again. Ezra, I'm sorry, first of all, to you that the game starts so late. And I want to ask you, Bedsy mentioned the Blackhawks play kind of a back and forth and an open iced approach. Do you think that bodes well for the Avalanche? Should they play that game or should they lock it down?
Well, first of all, I'm on the West Coast. So for me, it's an hour earlier. It's 7:30. It's
okay. That's good.
But thank you for your concern. I do
So
think
I should blame you, is what you're really saying.
that's right. It is. They do it for me on the West Coast.
Yeah.
It's weird that it's a Chicago Colorado game that gets that treatment. I understood it for the West Coast road trip, but anyway, yeah. I mean, I think Colorado doesn't need to change their game for Chicago. They should keep playing the way that they have been playing this season so far. Which, you know, there were some little adjustments in Seattle, of course. There's always team by team adjustments, but like, if the Blackhawks are going to play wide open and turn the puck over, then great, capitalize on that.
Yeah.
Take it to them. You know, turn those turnovers into opportunities and score a lot of goals. I think this is going to be a blowout. I think it's going to be really fun. I don't want to get ahead of myself, but man, I think we're going to see a couple of people come off the no goals so far this season list tonight, and I can't wait.
Well, I will be in the arena tonight, so I am hoping that you are entirely correct, that the Avs just come out like they have been known to before in their home opener and in home playoff games, because that should be kind of the vibe. The Avs fandom has been jonesing for a live hockey game with meaning, and I think when you add the twist of the Bedard phenom into this, you have a really unique and special opening night. But speaking of opening quick starts, Jacob, how important do you think that is for the Avalanche specifically tonight, with the crowd probably being a little more raucous?
I mean, it's important in the sense that I think if they do get off to a quick start, it's easy to just bury Chicago, you know, under an avalanche of goals. But I don't think it's necessary, because, like Bednar said, like they can get beat in kind of an up and down style game. So like, even if Chicago were to come out, like, you know, say it's 3-0 Chicago at the end of the first period, Avs can easily come back, you know, from that deficit against Chicago. I think that, you know, it's only important in the sense that they could end it early, but if they don't get off to a quick start, I don't think that it's the end of the world either, just because, you know, Chicago's still a developing team. They're going to make some mistakes. And also, like, the Avalanche kind of look like they're a little possessed this year, that they're, you know, trying to make a point that last year was a fluke. You know, they were injured. They were completely out of gas. That, you know, the real Avalanche team looks a lot closer to, you know, the Stanley Cup champion than last year's model. And so I expect them to come out fast. I would be a little shocked if they had a slow start in tonight's game. And yeah, I'm with Ezra. I think it's going to be a blowout.
Yeah, I hope, like I said, I hope so. And when you talk a little bit, you know, about being, I think Evan put it this way a few episodes ago, the Avs being a little pissed off. I can only think of Nathan MacKinnon, and when I think of pissed off Nathan MacKinnon against a team that can give you open ice and turn the puck over, I start to feel like I made my bold prediction a week too early, and this might be one of those hat trick for somebody kind of nights. So I did a great segue there. Give me a round of applause. We are now moving on to the final segment here that we call Bold Predictions.
It's a bold strategy, Cotton. Let's see if it pays off for him. I call that bold talk.
All right, so I'm trying to pull up last week's. You know how this goes. Every time I introduce the segment, I haven't actually done my job just yet. But I will tell everyone that I know for a fact my I guess prediction was not correct. I guessed that a Colorado Avalanche would have a hat trick between now and then, and that did not happen for us. So let's get into the rest of the crew. Evan, what was your prediction, and were you correct?
As I say, mine was, I mentioned the San Jose Trap game, and it was close, but I'm happy to be wrong about that one.
Yeah. See, that's the way to do a bold prediction right there, because you boldly predict that the Avs will lose, and then when they don't, you feel good about yourself because at least your favorite team got a victory.
For 58 minutes there, it was like,
you were like, do I really want to be this bold again next week? Ezra, I remind me of yours, and were you right?
Yeah. Mine was that Ivan Prosvetov would get a shout out against the San Jose Sharks.
Oh, yeah. That didn't happen. Didn't happen.
He didn't give up any goals, but.
Yeah, well, I mentioned in my article leading it up into the season that I feel like Georgiev might start every game in October, if sparing maybe one or two. If you look at it, it's like Pittsburgh or Carolina. I don't think you're starting the backup against Carolina. So I think you'll probably go with him potentially against Pittsburgh. But now we're talking Crosby and that new look. Polar Knights, we love you back. So thank you for joining our program. As always, perfect evolution of beard growth. Yes, indeed. Look at us. We've got no beard. We got Jacob's kind of coming in. We got mine coming in a little thicker. And then we got Ezra with the full playoff beard, rocking and rolling, baby. I love it. Okay, so let's get into this week's bold predictions. And Jacob, it's been a while for you. So let's start with you. What's your bold prediction this week?
So my bold prediction is every player on the third line gets at least a point, and one will get multiple points in tonight's game.
Wow, I like that one.
So that's a good one.
A point for everyone on the third line, and someone with multiple points.
Yep.
Got it. Okay, that's a good one. And I'm calling third line if that's your move there. I think, and then I call Tatar with a goal and an assist. But those are shot callers. Evan, your turn. What's your bold prediction?
Yeah, I know we mentioned him earlier in the show and about how he's off to a slow start this season, but he is used to playing against Chicago as he was with Nashville. I think Ryan Johansson will get 2 goals tonight against the Blackhawks.
2 of them. I like it. And to add, one of them will be a power play goal. All right, Ezra, your bold prediction.
Wow. Okay. Well, I had similar thoughts about Johansson, and I was going to say Ross Colton, but the whole third line, I like both those predictions. I'll come up with a new one right now, and that is that I think we're going to see a dominant Bowen Byram. We're going to see Bowen Byram at his best. We're going to see a goal and an assist from Bo, and he's not going to give up a goal while he's on the ice.
Goal and an assist and no goals against for Bo Byram tonight.
That'd be nice to see.
That would be really nice. I think that would bode well for his confidence.
These are always wishes from me.
Yeah, these are bold wishes. Change the name of it, maybe.
Sometimes you just got to put that bait on and throw that hook out there and pray for the best, my man. It is what it is. That's why we called it bold predictions, man. But I like Ezra's point in keying on the defenders, and I'll say we will see 2 defenders score goals this evening in the home opener. So that's my bold prediction. Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm kind of thinking. Now you're picking up on my stuff. But yeah, so like I said, I will be in the house tonight. So if you see me walking around in this blue Avalanche jersey and you don't like the things I say, please just come tell me. Don't throw anything at me. And we can chat about it, maybe have you on the show so you can beat me up verbally. But I look forward to this game tonight. I want to thank the 3 of you for joining me and humoring me as I spout absolute nonsense out of my face. Thank you for joining the Mile High Hockey Lab, everyone. We will catch you next week. And I guess the only thing left to say on a day like this is go Avalanche.
Welcome to
Mile High Hockey Lab.
Mile High Hockey Lab.